Hey, it's Ben here, and here in this tutorial we're going to have a look at the BretFX Splitz plugin version 2, which allows you to create these kind of nice customized split screens. And specifically we're going to have a look at the Splitz customizer that allows you to decide how many rows and columns you have in your split screen, along with some nice functionality such as being able to round off the edges, add type overlays, and a whole bunch of other features that we'll walk through step by step in this tutorial. So the first thing we'll do here is just create a brand new timeline so we can add a kind of simple split screen to it. So we're going to go to File, New and Project. Create a brand new project here. We'll call this Splitz Demo, and we're going to have this as 1080p. You can work in 4K, other higher resolutions with the Splitz plugin, but we'll click OK to this. And basically in here what we're going to do is create a simple 4-up split screen just to have a quick look at how we can use the customizer. So if we drag some clips down to our timeline here, we'll grab this one, our rowing boats here, we'll grab our clock, and we will grab our smoke effect here. And I'm just going to bring my playhead to the end here. I'm going to use Option and the right square bracket just to trim all these down. We'll do Shift and Z just so we can see all these. So basically we have 4 layers here that we're going to add a Splitz customizer to. Now before we do this, we're just going to go to Window, Workspaces, and set the default workspace. And that just means we're all looking at the same layout in Final Cut Pro. Now where we find the Splitz 2 plugin is across in our effects. So this split screen is added as an effect. You can see under the Video tab here, we have all, and then we have the BretFX Splitz 2. Now, if we scroll down here, you can see there are some simple preset split screens. So for instance, if we select the Splitz 2x2, we can drag this to our clip here. It's going to allow us to set up that 4-corner split screen. So we can select this, we can come up to the inspector, and then we can see kind of the options for that specific split option. So you can see we have a position preset, so 1, 2, 3 or 4. Let's can move that to the different splits. We can add a gap in here. There's a gap between our different splits, and we can quickly kind of modify and add this to all of our clips. So if I copy the small adjustments that I've done there, so edit and copy, and then select my other 3 layers, I can go to edit and paste attributes. That's going to allow me to paste the Splitz 2x2 here, and then I can select each layer. We can just change the position preset for each of those, and I'll just pull this one down to the bottom left, and then this one down to the bottom right, all the way across there. Now you can see with this last clip, it's not quite the same shape or same rectangle shape as those other splits. Now if you do see this, then the first thing to try is just to scroll down and change the spatial conform from fit to fill. And for most landscape projects, that will change that. So basically it's a preset that means it's filling the 1920 by 1080 or 4K resolution of your timeline. So you can see quite quickly here we have a quick and easy to set up 4-up split screen, and we can run through some of the other options. In here as well we have shape options, we have border options, so we can do things like rounding off our shape. In fact, let's just come to our generators here. We'll scroll down and we're going to add a quick solid color in the background. We'll grab a custom solid, just drop that below my other layers, and we'll change this to any other color just so that we can see what we're doing here when we make modifications. So with that topmost clip, you can see we can modify the roundness of the edges. We can modify the scale of the split itself, and then we have options for things like the border. We can add an inner border or an outer border. We can change the width of that, and a whole variety of other different options, such as tinting our movie here. We can add some other different effects in there as well. And before we move on to look at the customizer, there's just one last thing I want to look at here. So we're going to just have a look at how we reframe our videos using the on-screen controllers. So the first thing to do is to make sure that you've got the right layer selected. So we'll have a look at reframing the clock here. So I'm going to select my clock layer, and what I'm going to do is come up to my inspector here, and in order to bring up the on-screen controllers, I just need to make sure I select the Splitz customizer up in the inspector. So as soon as I do that, then you can see the on-screen controller pops up. It means I can move my clip left and right, and I can also increase the size of it. So I can pop that size up and frame it however I want to within there. So that's really the key for using the kind of on-screen controller tools, is when you select one of your layers, make sure that you then have the Splitz customizer selected and not another effect, or you have that deselected. The on-screen controller won't show up then. But as soon as we click that, it's going to show up the on-screen controller, and we can select that, reframe it, we can rotate our video in there as well and get it in exactly the right position for our split screen setup. So let's jump away from this standard pre-built split screen, and most of the other splits that we have there are pretty much the same. We're going to have a look at the customizer now. So I'm going to select my top 4 layers, and we're going to go up to Edit and Remove Effects. That's basically going to remove any effects. So that's going to remove that split screen from our clip, so they're back to their original format. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to select my topmost clip. We will stay in the BretFX Splitz 2 plugin here, and we're going to come to the Splitz customizer. You can see there's 2 options here, one for the vertical customizer on the right and one for a standard landscape style video. So I'm going to drag this across here, and you can see the real nice thing with the customizer here is that we have options for the number of columns and rows that we can have within our split screen. So we're going to keep this simple for the moment. We're going to come to 2 columns and 2 rows, which is basically going to drop that first clip on the bottom left here. And then you can see I've got options for my row position. So I can change my column position to a negative value, or I can increase it, which is going to put it to the left or right there. And then I have my option for my row position, which is going to allow me to push that up. But before we do that, we want to kind of get some settings set up for our split screen. So first thing is we're going to scroll down and just modify the roundness of our shape here a little bit. Make this a little bit rounder, and then we will change the color of that inside border. So we'll go for a nice magenta. We have that yellow background here. That's going to look pretty good for us. Now before we go any further, we're going to come back up to the top here. So we can here increase the gap between our split screens, and we can also then come in and have an X offset and a Y offset if we need it. I'm just going to reset those. I don't need to offset those values for the moment. So we're just going to leave a little bit of a gap between our different splits. And actually I'm going to drop the roundness back down to somewhere around 10. So once we've kind of got this all set up, we've got some options for adding type to our split. We can also change the background, and also towards the top here there's some animation options as well. So you can see we can have our split screen animate in from the right, so it's going to slide in left. We can also change the in speed, out speed, and rotation options as well. But we'll just play this short section through, so you can see this first clip is just animating on nicely from the left there. I think I'm going to just tap T, bring out my trim tool, and just drag this clip a bit further forward so that when it slides in, we've got a bit more of that smoke already in our screen there. So once we have our split screen set up, then we're going to go to Edit and Copy. We'll select those other 3 layers, and we'll go to Edit and Paste Attributes, and that's going to allow us to paste the basic kind of features except for the position to each of those different parts of the split screen. So actually all those layers are behind this kind of smoke layer at the moment. So one by one I can select my clock first of all. We can change the column position of that, and we can change the row position. We'll push that up, and then we can go through all of these, change the column position, and we'll change the row position of this last one. So you can see really quickly we end up with nice customizable split screen that we can use. So at the moment all of these split screens are animating in from the same direction. So if we play this through, they're all going to move in from that right hand side. And actually we've got one clip which isn't the same scale here, this top right clip. If I select it here, just make sure my playhead is hovering over it, and we scroll down to fit, we can again change that to fill, and that will get that to match those other clips. So again, we have all those clips animating in at the same time from the right. So I'm going to stagger these a little bit. So we'll have our clock is at the top, so I'm going to just move that one down here in my layers. So we'll have the top right clip animate on first, then we'll have the clock, and then we'll have our rowboats, and then we'll have our smoke. So, and then we'll have our rowboats after our smoke actually. We'll offset these a little bit, so I'm just going to move these and kind of stagger them. So when we press play, they're going to kind of overlap each other as we move in. So I want to avoid that. So I'm going to have my first one come in from the left. So we're going to have it slide right. I'm going to have my second clip come in from the bottom. So we'll have it slide up. I'm going to have my third clip slide in from the right. And I'll have my last clip slide in from the bottom as well. So we'll just see how that plays through. So then it's just a question of getting the timing right. We can maybe just have a look at when those animations finish so that the next one is starting right at that particular point in time. So if we start from the beginning, this is moving all the way across. We can move this one back a bit. So we're going to get this to kind of construct itself. We'll have this one coming in. Got a little bit of overlap there. Dodge that. There we go. And then we can move this one back a bit. So you can see just by moving those clips around now, we don't have the same issues we have with split screens that use drop zones. We can control exactly where our clips are dropping in. And you can see with all of our clips, we can modify them a little bit. So for instance, with the clock, we might want to zoom in a little bit, maybe frame this so it's touching the black of that circle at the top and the bottom. So if we come down, we can modify the source settings. You can see we've got the size options. So we can have that clock a bit bigger in that space. We can also modify the X and Y attributes. So maybe we'll get the numbers there to nicely kind of center. And then we also have some options for things like the tint color. So we can add a tint to this too, which can be quite nice. We can modify that tint color here. So then we can come down to our type here, and we can add some text that will overlay over the top of our split here. So if I come to text, I can turn that on. We can add pan and zoom effects to that if we want to, but we can also modify all of our type properties. So we'll write in, we'll change this to axis font. We can modify the color of this. So we'll get a nice bit of contrast between our background and our foreground. We can increase the size of that. Okay, just trying to remember these settings when we go to the next clip. So we'll go to our clip here, scroll down to our type here, we'll turn this on, change this to the axis font, increase the size of it, and we'll add a little tint to this as well. So we'll scroll up, we'll add a tint. This time we'll make that tint kind of a nice magenta to counter the blue from the other one. Just going to drop my type size down to the same size. I think I had 194, just so it fits in there. And so on and so forth. So we can keep moving through all these, adding type over the top, modifying some other properties in here as well. The type can have a little animation too. So if we add on our pan and zoom for our type here, you can see we can get a little slide in right. So when we play this back through, so on our clock layer, we'll just add a little bit of delay in there as well. So now you can see on our clock layer, we're getting that text slide in as well. So that's looking pretty nice. Let's add a little slide in for our type on our drone shot here. So we'll scroll up. We're going to add a little slide up by word. We'll delay that a little bit and check that option. So just going to take the delay off the type here a little bit. And we just need to make sure that we turn our type on. We'll increase the size of this. And we'll just leave that one as white. We will add some type over here. Again, make sure we check the type on. Let's go for a nice yellow here. We will type in 104 again. Scroll up, we're going to add that tint on here again. So this time we'll choose a red, increase that tint. So, nice, quick and easy way of adding a super cool split screen with animations in here. That is looking pretty nice. So nice split screen there. Now we're going to create a new split screen. I'm just going to trim all these down. We'll just use Option in the right square bracket. And I'm just going to grab one clip here. We're just going to use the same clip here. We'll use the clock. And we're just going to make a slightly bigger split screen using the customizer. I want to show a couple other things that we can think about doing when we're working with this. So I'm just going to trim this down. We are going to have the clocks all moving at the same time. So I'm just going to duplicate multiple layers here. So I'm just selecting more than one layer and duplicate them up. And we're going to make 9 layers here. So far we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and we need 2 more. So we're going to do a 3 by 3 little column here. So if I select my topmost layer, just so we can see what's happening, we'll add the Splitz customizer. I'm going to come up here and we'll make this the default 3 by 3. I'm not going to add a tint to it or anything like that for the moment. Okay, so we've just got the clock going around there. And I'm going to add a bit of a gap in here, just so we have some gaps between our split screens. We'll make this a hard edge, and I'm going to just move the position of the source. So at the moment the size is set to 150. Let's scale that down so we can see the black edges of our clock, and we're going to then just copy that, select all of our other clips, and then go to Edit, Paste Attributes. And we'll click Paste. So once we've got these all up here, I'm just going to go through them one by one, get the positioning right. So we'll get the column position for that one right, top left, and then the next one can stay in the middle. We'll do the next one's top middle. So just reading left to right from the top as I organize my layers. The column position for this one, across on the right, and then row position up again, and then just keep going until we have them all in the right spot. Okay, so we've got these all in the right spot now. If we did want to do something a bit different here, then I'm going to select my middle 3 clips here. So my middle one here is the one right in the middle. I'm going to disable these 2 clips, and for this middle one I'm going to change this to number of columns 1. So essentially what we can do here is we can actually have different styles of column within our grid, and we can kind of take this to different levels as well. I'm going to scale my clock. Oops, there's 2 scales here. There's the shape scale and then there's the source scale. I did the wrong one there, so we're just going to scale this up. So we've got that clock filling up the middle there. So, and obviously all still in sync. So we've got our different scales of box there. So for instance, if we were thinking we wanted to have some other parts of this, maybe it's like 4 clocks within this little grid, then we would be splitting this into kind of different sizes again. So if I take this clip, I'm going to bring this one up to the top. For this one, I'm going to turn it back on. I'm going to now change this to be part of 6 columns. So you can see it splits it again. And then I'll put this one up at the top. So I'll change the row position. I'm going to move this one to the middle here. Whoops. There. And then the top middle one should be this 3rd clip down. I'm going to change this one to 6 columns again. And so again now we can basically have multiple kind of clocks with different layouts within this different sort of grid layout. So if we come down to the bottom here, the bottom right one, I'm going to duplicate this bottom right layer once. I will change this to 6 and 6, so it's going to be even smaller. And then we'll do the same for the bottom one. So 6 and 6. We'll then move this one across in its column position, so it's right on the right hand side there. And you can see we can really nicely control, customize, manipulate the different columns and widths that we've got. I'm going to bring this one down to the third layer and tap V to re-enable that. So for this one, I'm going to make it one of 3 columns and 6 rows. And then I'll move this all the way down to the bottom right. Drag that to the left. And we can see where it is there. Oh, there we go. Okay, I'd gone the wrong way. So basically now you can see, again, we've got these kind of different row and column positions. Now, all of these clocks are from the same video, which I believe is a little bit longer than what we've actually got on the timeline there. So if we just do Control D, I don't think it's 5 minutes long, but that should extend it to its full length. So yeah, 2 minutes and 47 seconds long. So basically what I can do is come to the end here, just trim that back down. And then at the moment I've got 9 seconds there, so I've got lots of space to work with here. So if I select my T key, I'm just going to drag all of these incrementally a little bit further to the left. So bottom one I'll leave as is, then the second one I'll drag once, third one I'll drag twice, and we're just going to offset, so 3 times here. So you can see what the trim tool is doing here is when I click and hold, it's changing where the beginning and end of this clip is. So we're just going to get different parts of that time hopefully nicely offset. So we should get a sort of interesting tapered look, and we don't have to do these all lots and lots, just as long as they're all a little bit different. We should get quite a neat effect. So you can see now this is all set up. Let's play this through. So all those clocks kind of moving at slightly different time, a little bit offset, and that's giving a nice effect just by kind of dragging those clips in different ways. So you can see the kind of previous clip I'd done, I'd added that yellow background. I can do the same here. Actually the yellow works quite nicely there, but we'll go for a different color. Let's go for a magenta here, and we'll trim that down at the end there, option the right square bracket with that clip selected, and we can then play this through. So again, that nice offset here. So we'll just have a look at one other thing in the Splitz customizer, and then if you have any questions about this plugin or about other plugins in Final Cut Pro 10, then do leave a question below in the comments. We've kind of had a look at all these different options. There is a background option here as well. We can use a drop zone to kind of add a background to it. We've got all our regular text options. And then we have things like our options for our roundness and stuff like that. We also have the shear as well, which will allow us to kind of create a more angled version of our split screen. You can see that down here in some of the different examples of split screens at the bottom here, but we can create those ourselves. So with this clip, I think I'm modifying this very topmost layer. As we select the other ones, we can go down to that shear and modify either the shear for the X or the shear for the Y. So we can have different setups of split screen with some nice different options there. I'm just going to reset those, and we'll leave this like this. Now if you have any questions about working with the BretFX Splitz 2 plugin, then do leave them in the comments below. Otherwise, I look forward to seeing you on the next tutorial.